My sister-in-law got arrested for impersonating child services to terrorize me during pregnancy because she wanted to adopt my baby, but even after she got out of prison she violated her restraining order and showed up at my house. I'm Jessica, 28F, and I need to share what happened to me during my pregnancy. My husband Oscar, 29M, and I have been together for 6 years, married for 3. We live in a small ranch house in Ohio that we bought 2 years ago. Oscar works as an electrician and I teach 2nd grade at the local elementary school. When I got pregnant with our first baby, we were over the moon. We had been trying for 8 months and finally got our positive test in January. Oscar immediately started converting our spare room into a nursery. He painted the walls yellow since we wanted to be surprised about the gender. Every weekend for 2 months, he worked on building a crib from scratch and installing safety latches on all the cabinets. The pregnancy went smoothly until week 32. That's when everything started falling apart, though I didn't know it at the time. Let me back up and explain something important about Oscar. When he was 19, he got arrested for stealing a car. It wasn't really stealing. His friend Jake had borrowed his older brother's car without permission and Oscar didn't know. They got pulled over and both got charged. Oscar took a plea deal for misdemeanor theft and did 100 hours of community service. This happened 9 years ago. Since then, Oscar has never had so much as a speeding ticket. He doesn't even drink beer anymore because he said he learned his lesson. The incident happened on a Thursday afternoon in March. I had just gotten home from my last parent-teacher conferences before spring break. I was exhausted and my feet were swollen, so I was lying on the couch when someone knocked on our front door. The knock was loud and persistent, not like a neighbor or delivery person. I opened the door to find a woman who looked to be in her 50s. She wore a navy blue blazer and carried a brown leather folder. She introduced herself as Margaret from the Department of Children's Services. She said she needed to speak with me and Oscar about a report they had received. Margaret explained that someone had called their hotline claiming that Oscar was using drugs in our home and that this posed a risk to our unborn baby. She mentioned his previous arrest and said they had to take all reports seriously, especially when there was a criminal history involved. I invited her inside because I knew we had nothing to hide. Oscar came home from work about 20 minutes later and found us sitting at our kitchen table. Margaret had been asking me questions about Oscar's work schedule, our finances, and whether I had noticed any changes in his behavior. When Oscar walked in, his work boots were muddy and his uniform had electrical tape stuck to it. Margaret looked him up and down and made notes in her folder. She asked him to sit down and started questioning him about his daily routine. She wanted to know where he went after work, who his friends were, and whether he had been in contact with Jake, the friend from his arrest. Oscar answered every question calmly. He explained that he comes straight home after work every day. His lunch break is spent at the job site with his coworkers. On weekends, he works on house projects or we visit his parents who live about 40 minutes away. He hasn't spoken to Jake in over 5 years. Margaret then said she needed to inspect our house. She went through every room, opening closets and drawers. In the nursery, she examined the crib Oscar had built and asked why we had chosen not to find out the baby's gender. She looked through our medicine cabinet and asked about the prenatal vitamins I was taking. After the inspection, Margaret informed us that we both needed to take drug tests immediately. She said there was a lab across town that stayed open until 8 p.m. and we needed to go that day. We drove there separately, Oscar in his work truck and me following behind in our car. The drug test process took about an hour. We had to wait in a small room with plastic chairs while they processed our samples. Oscar kept checking his phone and tapping his foot on the linoleum floor. I filled out paperwork about my pregnancy and listed all the medications I was taking. Margaret called me 3 days later while I was at school. I had to step out of my classroom during lunch to take the call. She said both our drug tests came back negative and the